Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an evening with LGBTQ plus heroes. My name is Christopher Dyer. I am the co-chair of the 50th Anniversary Committee of the World Pride 2025 Planning Committee. We're delighted to have you here for an evening with heroes. We have a action-packed panel, and I left the really long bio descriptions at home, so I'll do a quick introduction for you because they're more important. If you're interested in knowing more about our heroes, go to capitalpride.org/evening-heroes. I also have the honor of knowing and working with all of the heroes on this panel, so I could make some very personal comments, but I won't. Anyway, our first panelist is Martin Espinoza, who is the co-founder of Stonewall Sports, and he is now the managing director of the Fray. For those of you who don't know, Stonewall Sports revolutionized how we do stuff in the city. They are now in 28 cities across the country. They start off as Stonewall Kickball. What I especially love about them is they raise a lot of money in low dollar amounts for the community. They also have been the location of many people coming together and finding true love. So that's a really great legacy for him and for the community. The next panelist is a dear friend of mine, Cathy Renna, who is the communications director for the National LGBTQ Task Force. I met Cathy back in 1990 something when she did a media training for me when I was doing Youth Pride. Cathy has been involved in almost every major LGBT story in the movement in the past 30 years, including Matthew Shepard. But one of the first I knew her was when the coming out episode of Ellen was on TV. And now we have gay people getting married on TV. I think that's in part because of Cathy. So that's Cathy. Yeah. Another great panelist is Randy Shulman, who's the editor-in-chief of Metro Weekly magazine. Randy has been covering Pride for the last 30 years. One of the great things about Metro Weekly is it's provided a showcase and enormous support for a lot of LGBT youth, LGBT organizing groups and committees. And basically, it's been fun. I still miss, the gossip column part of it, but I have been honored to be on the cover of MW at least once. So give it up for Randy Shulman. So I know she's very sad that she's not here, but she's in California. Our other panelist is Dr. Imani Woody, who is basically one of the premier LGBT elder advocates in the country. She's been on numerous panels, started numerous things, but she's also the founder and CEO of Mary's House for Older Adults, which will be the first LGBT senior housing program in the city. And I think there'll be 15 houses, but she'll tell you a little bit more about that. She's amazing as well. So give it up for Imani Woody. And finally, my other co-chair and the co-chair of the Emeritus Committee for the 50th anniversary, and someone who has been the director of Capital Pride and numerous things and has tolerated me as an organizer and worked with me and been really remarkably supportive for years and years and years. Plus, apparently he's been a mascot for a lot of things, and he's played a lot of sports, and he's been in a lot of leadership positions. He's really amazing and one of the nicest people I know, Robert York. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ashley Elliott, who is our moderator, who will introduce herself and take off the panel. Welcome, everyone.
Hello. Thank you from the voice of God from back. I am Dr. Ashley Elliott, affectionately known as Dr. Vivid. I am your moderator for this evening, but when I'm not moderating, I'm being queer. Also being a clinical psychologist, an advocate, and the chief inclusivity officer for the country's first gay bar, social club, and cafe, Spark Social DC. So I am pleased to be here this evening amongst you all and these amazing heroes. So heroes, the rules for today. I'm going to ask you some questions and we're going to.
Is this an elimination?
Maybe. Don't touch the button on the floor, okay? So I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to ask you for the sake of time and the sake of getting out in the ring to keep these things to about 2 minutes. You can jump in at any time. And we're going to always remember to include Dr. Imani because we got to look over to her and give her props and give her dues. Can you hear me clear, Dr. Imani?
I can. Thank you, Doc.
That's right. All right. So let's get this night started. And I want to just leave it to any of you to answer this question or go first. What was your first experience with pride?
I was just looking for a mic, but I will kick things off. I know there's going to be a lot about Capitol Pride. Mine might have been a blur, which means I had an amazing time 17 years ago in the DC, but I wanted to mention that my first Pride ever experience was back when I was in Arizona, moved to Phoenix at 18, and it was just an enlightening time coming from a small town called Yuma and just the open up my eyes of like, whoa, like there's more of me, there's more support, and this is going to be great. So.
So mine was Oklahoma City, my hometown. I was not out and decided to visit the parade, and it was about 6 or 7 people deep, and I was like on that back row, number 7, and there were a lot of TV crews that were out. So I was trying to duck and cover because I wasn't out and wasn't sure when I was coming out. Oklahoma City being one of the Bible belts. Just wasn't very comfortable, seeing if I was going to be on the news or, my parents would find out or even, college roommates and fraternity brothers. So that was my first experience. And then I moved here in 1994 and saw how much bigger and better it was and knew that it was something that I wanted to be a part of. And I kept trying to get the job. And on my third attempt, I became the director. So never give up, but that was my first experience was Oklahoma City.
I don't remember. Um, but what I do remember is very clearly when the magazine started in 1994, um, I started covering Pride and grabbed a camera, went down to, I think it was called Francis Field. I think it was Francis Field, and just photographed away. It didn't even ask permission of people. Hey, can we take your picture? We're going to put it in a magazine. And that was the first one. And for a few years, from 94 to 96, I think it was, we covered it down there. And I know we're going to get to this later, but I watched over the 30 years as Pride grew, and I can address that later in a much more interesting way, how Pride changed from then. But my feeling at the time, I remember really just, it was a small, intimate event, but it was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of just, it was like a big picnic back there down on that field. And people just enjoyed themselves. And so that would have been my first Pride.
I guess the first thing I thought of when you said this just now was a little spoiled. Like family holidays were like my first Pride because I had a pair of aunts they've been together 50 plus years now. So for me, it was like, okay, I mean, that was a mini Pride. But I grew up in New York, so 1980 something, I don't remember, Andy. I went to New York City Pride. Like, I mean, there's going to Pride, and then there's going to New York City Pride with your girlfriend in college. And it was, yeah, it was like it was overwhelming, but it was also that moment where you realize that like you're part of something a whole lot bigger and a whole lot more diverse than you ever realized. And, I mean, for me, it kind of just jettisoned me into like a kind of a different world.
Doc, what about you? What was your first experience with pride?
I saw Pride on TV, like the New York Pride, like Cathy saying, and it didn't fit me really. So my first Pride was at on Banneker Field, right? And I think it might have been the first Black Pride on Banneker Field in '91, about 30 years ago. And it was just glorious, you all. The sun was shining, the bleachers were full. We were by Howard University. I was a little nervous because I was out, but not really out. I was out to some family and some friends, and who's going to see you? The TV cameras are there and that kind of thing. But once I got into Banneker Field, and so short and tall and all shades of the rainbow in that field and entertainment. First time I saw actual they were billed as drag queens at the time. Oh, it was just marvelous. And everybody was varying shades of black. That was just just fabulous.
I think my first Pride, I was probably about 9 years old, walking down the street with my mom. She's in the beauty industry, and I was like, "What is this? And why is everyone half naked? This is glorious. I want to be here." But as a teenager, sneaking out to go to Pride, to attend things uptown, and being like, "My people. These are my people," and it has been a blessing. So now I take my kids to Pride, and then I drop them off so I can do the other things. But it's been a glorious experience to see over time how Pride has evolved and how differently we experience it now, especially in this city. So it leads me right into the next question about Pride overall. I always remind my little gabies the first Pride was a riot. I need you to know that. So how has the meaning of Pride changed for you all over the years? Yes, Doc, take over.
Oh. So the meaning of pride, when, this is just an add-on to what our last conversation is that, pride was for young people. When I first went, I didn't really see any older people. And they may have been there, just didn't see them. But as I got older, we wanted to go to Pride. We wanted to do the parade and all that stuff. And so I and a group of folks were really lobbied the city to do a trolley for Pride. And so there's a trolley now, I think for maybe the last, I don't want to say like 8, 10 years, that does the parade, starts out at the Department of Aging. And we do that parade down there. So it's changed in that for me for that. And it's more inclusive in terms of, I mentioned, we used to call Capitol Pride white pride, right? But now Capital Pride is Capital Pride, and we're all kind of under that. All intersectionalities are under that umbrella.
It's interesting. So I went to the first Pride in New York, and it was fun. Like I went because I had a girlfriend. I wanted to find a community. If you had told me in 1980, whatever it was, 6 or 7 that we went, that in 2019 I would be standing in the middle of Times Square at the closing of World Pride, having done the media for World Pride for, it almost killed me. Like literally, like it was like a year. And it was huge and unrelenting and amazing though, because for me, at the end of the day, what it was about having a platform to tell our stories and to give visibility and space for our history, for all the folks who are part of this community that we don't see as often, like Dr. Imani saying, like one of my favorite things at New York City Pride is to climb up to the top of the double-decker bus at SAGE, which is the LGBTQ senior organization, and to just watch the faces of our elders who are on the top of this like tour bus, and watching the response of the crowd and seeing there was this one couple all the time, and every year they changed the number because they'd been together for whatever it was, 40, 42, 46, 40, and they kept increasing that. It was like something in a deli in New York, or they just kept adding the number, and hearing people on the sidelines simply saying thank you, like, or in tears, or even just the last couple years at New York City Pride, the people on the sidelines, because, the march is huge. These parades are huge, and, they've become what they've become. But for me, it's always about walking along the sidelines. And I think it was last year in New York City where there was a young kid with a sign that said, "This is my first Pride." And he was probably 13 or 14, and his mother was with him. And so I went over to, like, I don't know, hand out whatever tchotchke I was handing out for the task force. I don't remember what it was, a fan or something. And the mom thanked me, and she said, "Yes, he came out to me as trans last year, whatever. And this is our first Pride." And I looked, it's hot. I was a little overheated. And I looked at her, I said, "I can tell you're wearing a sweater." Like she was wearing like this rainbow hand knitted sweater in New York City. But like just that's what, for me, that's what Pride has turned into, like a space where folks can come and feel safe and be themselves, and more bring, their families, their parents, their own community, and see themselves in a way, like Imani's right. Like Pride has changed so much in depth and breadth and scope of who's participating and who's visible. And for our community, using it as a platform to let the world know that we're still here, we're not going anywhere, and this is who we are, and we're not going anywhere.
We have an interesting thing with the magazine. I don't remember exactly the year, but I think it was like 1996 where we did the first one where I badgered my way up onto the stage and said, I need to get a shot of the crowd. And they're used to me badgering my way up on the stage now, and they actually make time for us to do that. And I've looked through those issues sometimes and look back, and they really are a snapshot of the gay community in a massive way. And you mentioned white pride. It's interesting because if you go back to those earlier prides, the makeup of the crowd, and mind you, the makeup of the crowd is always happenstance because it's who's performing and who's going to be up there in front. So it's not an accurate or scientific way. But if you look at those early covers, Pride was overwhelmingly white. And it goes on and it goes on. And then suddenly it starts to get less overwhelmingly white and it becomes more diverse. And year after year, we would start going through these pictures and find far more diversity in Pride. So Pride is really, Capital Pride in particular, has really made efforts to embrace the entire community, where in the early years, what? No, okay, I thought you were kicking me. No, okay. She's kicking me if I say something
Saving
wrong.
that for when he misbehaves.
Well, I'm not going to misbehave. Okay, fine. Anyway.
Punishment is after the panel.
Oh, promises. Anyway, it's an interesting thing, and sometimes we'll put it up on the on the website. And I encourage people to go to the website when we do something like that and look at that, because you really do see history in that kind of formation of Pride. But the other thing I would like to say is that I've always had a different relationship to Pride than your average Pride goer. It's a job for me. It's work, and it has always been work. And I've never been an insider at Pride. I've never felt part of Pride in a way that I can connect, because I have to stay on the outside of that. I've got to get the pictures. I've got to, orchestrate my other photographers, man our booth, whatever, when we were doing the parade, things like that. So Pride's always been that. But when I connected to Pride, we did the Pride Guide from 1999 to 2011. We've produced the first Pride Guide. Whitman Walker, Jose, they got in touch, said, do you want to do this magazine? And I thought, this is a way for us to connect to Pride in a way that we know how. And so I took a lot of great pride in creating that magazine, in addition to Metro Weekly, but because it allowed me to give something to Pride that was more, and put effort into that and really create these guides. And we did that. And then at the same time, we did the Black Pride Guide, which was a crazy time because here we are producing all these magazines, and we did 11 Black Pride Guides. And that was a great community guide too. And then we did the Youth Pride Guides. So my connection to Pride has been as a reporter on the outside, but as a creator for the community, to give them the resources that they need for that. And that's, pretty much what Pride means to me. I think I answered the first question.
So I went from being terrified in Oklahoma City and then moving here, and actually Randy and Cathy were some of the first people that I met, because I only knew two people, friends that lived here. One was a childhood sweetheart from back in Oklahoma. And so I went from being terrified in Oklahoma City to trying to find my place here in DC. And then I became a volunteer with GLAAD Media Awards. Soon after that, started volunteering with Capital Pride and meeting Randy. And then I was selected to share my story in an anthology book called Out on Fraternity Row. So I got to share my fraternity story and why I was so closeted. And so fast forward to where we are today. And I think for me, even when I was with Capital Pride early on, I knew there was always somebody's first Pride, because that's what I felt, and I knew how I felt back home, being terrified, and then getting here and knowing that it's somebody's first Pride, the empowerment and a sense of belonging just was really powerful to me. And, like you said, seeing kids and then families who travel, thousands of miles because they can't go to Pride in their city, but they come to DC and they see how big the crowd is, and they see the empowerment and the sense of community and their tribe. I mean, the people that they, know as chosen family. So I guess, it has always meant something really deep to me, heartfelt and passionate. This is my 30th year with Capital Pride. And so I just have seen it, grow and progress and change over the years. And I really feel like we're at a point in our time. I feel like we've been made for this moment. It's not Stonewall for us, but it could be. I mean, with the way that things are going, I mean, I think, with World Pride and Capital Pride this year, and it being our 50th anniversary, I think we're made for this moment. And there's going to be a time that we're really going to have to stand up for each other more than ever. And so I'm glad that we're here. I know that we're all doing really important work, and I know that it will be powerful and life-changing for people that are here and even people that are watching, from afar. But just having that sense of belonging and community is so important.
Yeah, I echo a lot of everything everyone said. I would focus on, change. It's hard for us as we had used the word experienced leaders and planners and people involved in various prides or leadership roles. But change can be good. I think it's nice because it is always someone's first pride, and that doesn't change, and that hasn't changed in the many years. And it reminds me, last week somebody had asked me for a link to an old article about Stonewall sports, about why did we pick the word Stonewall. And he said, mainly because there's all these younger generation coming into the district, joining, or any of the other cities. And most of them now think the word Stonewall is coming from the church stone at Stead Park where we founded, and not realizing it has greater meaning than that. And so, yeah, we have to use these times to remind our youth and the first timers of how far we've come, and things are going to always change, and it always provides good sense of direction, and that, yeah, use word tribe, and this is our place. It's easy to erase us on digital platforms and writings on the wall, but we're here and we'll always be here. And this is always our moment.
Can I say one other thing? I will always say one other thing. They know that. I want to point out something about Robert, because, and I will tell this to anyone within earshot, and you're all within earshot. So Pride used to be, for those of you who remember, all on the same day. It was Sunday, and it was this parade, and then the festival, and the parade led into the festival. Now, let me tell you something personally. Todd Franson, my art director of 30 years, and me, we would have to shoot the parade, and run down there, and then get to our booth down at the festival by 3:30, and then try to frantically get whatever we could at the festival. And they didn't have a big closing concert at the end back then. It didn't work that way, but it was still fun. But it was all compressed into one day, and it was nightmarish and difficult. And I was younger. I had to do it now. I wouldn't be able to do it. But here's the thing. One year, Robert, when he was leading Pride, said, I'm going to put the parade on Saturday night, and we're going to have the festival on Sunday. And the community went, you want action-packed? No, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's horrible. That's the worst thing. I think even us at the magazine went, what is he doing? Is this a smart idea? And then, you know what? The most brilliant idea in the history of Pride, because it allowed the celebration, which has expanded under the Capital Pride Alliance to a whole week. It showed them that it doesn't have to be confined to one day. It can be more than that. It can expand. And so people came out in droves for the parade, as we all know, on Saturday, and the party continued. And then Sunday, everyone came down for the thing. It just expanded it. He deserves a round of applause for doing that. He did that.
Can I add something? Nothing to do with what you said. It just has made me think, one of the other things that I think is super important about Pride that maybe folks don't always think about is that it is and has been historically like the time of year where the media is going to cover us. And so like I always joke, it's like they have amnesia. They wake up in May and go, oh no, it's June's next month. Let's talk to the gay people. But we have leveraged that and we've used that. I mean, of course, there's coverage all year round. I mean, things have changed so much in the last 10, 20, 30 years. But the way that Pride was covered, even if you go back not too far, right? I remember when I was in New York City when I was working with GLAAD, and like the morning after Monday, after Pride, I had to do like the round of the TV things, including like, who remembers Hannity and Combs on Fox News? Fun times. And I would have to sit there and be like, well, yes, of course the community is perceived this way because the media covers us this way. And if you think that guy dresses like that every single day, you're kidding yourself. Like, he probably works on Wall Street and he's dressed like a giant sunflower. I actually remember that from the New York Post one year. That was their coverage, a picture of a person completely covered in like sunflowers going down Fifth Avenue. And so one of the ways we leveraged Pride as a community was to be advocates and fight for the media to cover more than just the most, some would say sensational, I would say interesting people. So like, and fun, like, I mean, it's a parade or a march, whatever. And so I vividly remember meeting with the GLSEN chapter here in Washington, D.C. You remember who I was dating anyway, I was dating the head, she was great. But they came to us and they were like, we want to try and get coverage at Pride and we never do. And I said, well, if you want to be in the parade and get covered by the Washington Post or NBC4 or whoever, you have to be more interesting than the other folks who are, all the drag queens and the leather folks and the dykes on bikes. And the folks are, frankly, if you're watching TV, you're not going to change the channel. So we ended up coming up with this idea of having them rent a school bus, and they had buckets. They filled the school bus with like people, kids, adults, whatever. And then they had folks walking alongside because, they were a small chapter. They were like, rent a school bus. We don't have $300 to rent a school bus. And they had buckets that said, give us your lunch money. And it ended up being like in the first paragraph of the coverage of the Washington Post that year. And it, that's the way that our community has creatively leveraged Pride, because we knew that was a guarantee that people would be, paying more attention to us. And that happens every year. So every year, I mean, I literally was on the phone today with a reporter in New York City. We want to focus on the trans community because they're under attack. What stories can we tell? What can we do? And they're thinking about it. It's not May. I mean, it's not even April. And they're starting to, think about Pride because they see it as one of the main opportunities to tell our stories and to cover the community, not related to something that just happened, but, in a more grand sense.
I'd like to add something as well.
Okay,
I'm thinking about a major membership organization that was trying to dip its toe in the water in being supportive of LGBTQ plus SGL, same gender loving people. And there were a lot of organizations trying to do that, right? A lot of corporate organizations how do we do that? Because they're remembering, oh my, there might be a return on investment if we give money during Pride and throughout the year. So when I think of Pride, everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon. I remember, you all probably remember, we're trying to figure out, do we take tobacco money and do we take alcohol money? Because everyone wants to jump on that bandwagon, right? But for me, it's the large organizations, the membership organizations, the nonprofits that are saying, we need to be a part of this. We need to be, and we can do this during Pride. So Cathy, I'm right with you as you talk about that.
So I think, as we've all seen, there's been a lot of evolution because as thoughts about our community evolve, the celebration and the act of resistance and the act of freedom that Pride is evolves in itself. So I think when I sit here amongst you all and in spirit amongst Dr. Imani, thinking about what led you to become an organizer. I know for myself, I'm a little Black girl from DC. For a long time, my pride experience didn't include a lot of people who look like me, but also as trying to be a protector and provide a safe space for our community. And I can't do that if I'm not actively involved. So I would like to know, in a few words, why you all became an organizer. Rock, paper, scissors.
I'm not an organizer. I'm not an activist. I'm a journalist. But I will say that I see my role in covering Pride as part of the press a little bit differently. And Metro Weekly has covered it a little bit differently. We don't write art. No one wants to read an article after Pride. We do it sometimes, but it's like, oh my God, I'm so bored reading this. We throw in as many pictures as we can possibly throw in. And we've done that every year. And we have probably in the archive somewhere of guessing about over 100,000, 200,000 photos. That includes the outtakes from 30 years of covering this. But specifically when I went digital and Ward started going crazy and coming back with 8,000 pictures on a day. It's like, what do you have to do? And what's interesting about that is, and this is from my perspective, it's not nothing to do with the activism part, but it's about the joy of Pride. Every year when I sit down after Pride, exhausted as well, and say, okay, now I have to put this issue out, we have to go through thousands of these photographs, and you go after one, after one, after one, and that's not an easy thing, believe me. But here's the thing, everyone's smiling, everyone's happy, there's diversity, there's joy, there's pride, there's excitement. And as you look through these, you get this sense of warmth from the community. And this hopefully translates into the issue that we end up curating. But the fact is, just the act that I get to go through and look at all these photographs relives the day and brings me an incredible amount of joy. So that's enough for me to be an activist, just to relive this with the community and see the community in action that way. But that really doesn't answer the question. So I'm just not an activist, sorry.
But it did answer the question, because you are organizing memories, you are organizing a time capsule for us all to be able to look back and see the evolution, but also to see, wow, this is what we can do when we all come together. So you are an organizer now.
I'm hiring you.
I agree with Doc
Anyone?
that you are an organizer, and I would even dare to say, when I look at past issues of Metro Weekly, I see activism, because you could have had a lot of other things on your cover inside that magazine. But what you do, it speaks to me. So you can accept it or not, but that's how I see you.
When two Black women said you were organizer, you were organizer.
Okay.
So
then.
organizing, though, for me, I've been organizing, I think, since I was 13 or so, organizing around issues impacting marginalized populations. That's just what I do. And I'm selfish in a way, because I organize around my own intersectionalities, right? As a Black person, as a woman, as a lesbian. When I realized I was a lesbian, I really began doing research, and actually my PhD doing a lot of research on Black gay folks, and including lesbians and gay males. And now, as an older lesbian, I organize around ageism, and how that impacts us, impacts our communities, right? So it's in my blood. It's in my blood.
I'll say I've always been one to volunteer as I grew up. I was raised right. I know my mom's watching at home in Arizona, but eventually it led into moving to the big city as an adult, and being fortunate to have my father figure mentors, gay dads, as some people know them as. And once I found my path and my way through, I've always wanted to give back. And it's not about writing a check, it's also just time, being available, finding an opportunity to do something. And I've just been fortunate moving into DC. There's always something to be involved in, help out. And Stonewall Sports was random. It wasn't for money. I somehow had the bandwidth to get it going. And it was because I saw a need for people to connect and have a little spot, almost kind of thinking about Pride being only on a Sunday. Stonewall Sports was a Sunday opportunity. And the only reason we did it on Sunday is because it's the only time the city would unlock the gates to the park because it was locked and not permitted. So we use our power to make those waves. Cobalt, which if now is a condo building, convincing them to open their doors on a Sunday because it normally was closed, to have an after hours, and then just making the ask of Dave Perusa, who's owner of Pictures now, but JR's back then, of just asking him for a little money to get off the ground, and that was it. And the rest was because of everyone else involved, and people saw something, and giving people space to create what it is now. And no, it's always nice to give back, and especially when it's greater than dollars. Dollars are easy. I would say, like, I've probably been hiding more since I've tried to retire from Stonewall stuff, but it's nice to always be available or be present today.
I think, again, for me, just having the opportunity after I moved from Oklahoma City, and just really trying to find, what I wanted to do. And when I moved, I had family and friends who were like, "Oh, you'll be back in 6 months. You won't survive in DC." I was like, "Well, there's a challenge." And so for me, I like to prove people wrong. And then, getting involved with the community and meeting people like Cathy and Randy, and then down the line, Martin and so many other people. Just a privilege and an honor to know where they came from, the life experience. And so I was like, I want to do this, and I want to do this full time. So I applied the first time for the job, and they said, you don't have enough experience. So I was like, okay, let me volunteer some more. And the average lifespan back then for a Pride director was 2 years. So I was lucky enough to serve 6.5 years. And I think Ryan, our current executive director, is 12 plus years. And so, it's that thing where, I just wanted to prove people wrong and not take no for an answer. I applied the second time, and they were like, "You're too white." And I was like, okay, that's an answer. And so a good friend of ours that we all know, Vince McConey, said, "You're never going to get hired until you start working for Whitman Walker Health." He was like, "You got to get in the door, and then it will probably happen for you." And that's exactly what happened. I got hired as an administrative assistant, and then things kind of changed, within the organization. And then Jim Graham was the person that said, Women Walker Health will take over Pride because there were some challenges that had been, previously. And so we'll take it on as a program. And after working there, and Jose Uclis was the Pride director for, I think, over 2 years. And then he decided to do something else with Millennium March. And they came to me and they said, "It's yours. You can be the acting director. We'll see how it goes." And then it's like, okay. And it really was trial by fire because, it was just me and 20, 25 volunteers. We didn't have any full-time staff because it was a program with Walker Health. And, like someone said earlier about alcohol and tobacco, we're a health organization. So, we had people that were like, "Why are you doing vodka?" People that have drinking issues. And so I say all of that to say that, just feeling the need to organize and be a part of something bigger than myself, and knowing where I came from and being able to share that story so that it, might encourage somebody else to break open that closet door, or, keep trying and not giving up. And so I think as an organizer over the years, it's just left me, feeling good about what we do as a community and making it bigger and better, for those that come along after us, and being able to really put a foundation that's strong and able to support everyone in our community. And I think even more so now, because, when I first moved here, I didn't know anybody that was trans. And now I have lots of friends that are trans individuals. And so standing up for them and standing in the space when they are attacked, whether it be on social media or within the community, I mean, that's something that we just have to do because it's the right thing to do. It's the human thing to do. And they're under attack just like all of us are. But I just get so irritated now with people on social media because it's easy to attack. It's very easy to attack. And I'm like, why? I mean, people are just trying to live their best life and be authentic with who they are. And I'm glad that we give that opportunity to them in our communities.
So I have a kind of an odd origin story. I guess if you're a hero, you have an origin story, right? Yeah. That was good. The video game person, yeah. So I moved here to go to medical school. I mean, some of you know this, right? I didn't like it, which much to my parents' chagrin. And so I left after a year, and I liked Washington a lot. I mean, I grew up in New York City on Long Island, and so it was good to be far enough away, from my family to not be able to go back for like a day. I had to go back for a few days. And so I wanted to get more involved in the community. I was dating somebody great, but she was newly sober. I don't really drink. And so we were like, what should we do? So we went to this panel that was up. I feel like it was the Ethical Society of DC. I can't remember. I probably have the flyer in my storage somewhere. And it was called Lesbian Invisibility in the Media. Imani may remember this from, the late 80s, early 90s in DC. And there was a woman on the panel. Her name was Ann Werner. And she had just helped start a chapter of GLAAD here in Washington. It was the National Capital Area chapter of GLAAD, right? And so we went and talked to her after because I've never pretended to be like an expert on politics or policy or those kinds of things. And I used to say I'm not political with a capital P, but I guess I kind of am now with the task force. So she saw us and she was like, they're young, they're energetic, they're kind of cute. Like, we need more women involved in this. So we started volunteering. And that's literally how I started doing it. And over time, you got appointed, I had the keys thrown at me and I became like the co-chair of the chapter. Literally, that's what happened at one point. And it was probably 6 years of volunteering before I was actually brought on as a consultant when GLAAD became a national organization. But what I realized in that interim, like whether it was at a protest for, Silence of the Lambs up on Wisconsin Avenue or Basic Instinct, right? Or working with the Washington Post when Tyra Hunter, folks remember Tyra Hunter in the mid 90s here, trans woman who was in a car accident, was not only not treated by the first responders, was ridiculed and abused and died in their care. We and our community rose up to fight. It was one of the first times there was that visible a fight around a trans person being mistreated. I mean, it was an education for me. And what I say all the time now is, short of us having a direct conversation and getting to know someone and kind of making queer people less abstract for them, the media is one of the best ways that we can do that. So, like you're talking about need for more support of trans, non-binary, genderqueer folks. I feel very much like a lot of the challenges we're facing around visibility in media are no different than the ones we faced maybe 20, 30 years ago for lesbian, gay, bisexual people. And so understanding how important it is to have that visibility and as allies be super visible is it's like a second act. I feel like it's a new recharge of using every single thing I've learned in the last 30 years. And I'm probably not going to do it for another 30 years. I'm just saying. There's a villa in Italy that my wife wants to live in at some point when, we retire. But like, there's a generation of young people coming up now that get this, that get social media and mainstream media and our queer media. We've got Metro Weekly, we've got The Advocate, Lou's here with the Blade. Like, we need to tell those stories because that's things are really rough now, but over time, we've been through much more difficult things, those of who've lived through the AIDS epidemic and, the fights around marriage and the fights, we need to all stay in the fight now because that's where our trans community is. And that's why I do this, because I know that if we are not abstracted people, then they won't hate us as much. Or they can, but they might know better not to. And the main way that we can do that now is with media, because we were at a protest in front of in the park, in the Stonewall Monument Park, the day after they announced that they took off the T and the Q. And there were about 1,000 people there. It was really amazing. And there was a ton of media. And probably 30% or so of the folks that were there identified as trans or non-binary. The rest were allies, straight, gay, lesbian, bi. But when I spoke, I didn't really talk to them. I talked to the media and I said, it's the folks who are not here and the folks who you can reach, telling the stories of the trans folks who are standing up here, young people, veterans. It was really amazing. That's what's going to help move us forward. That's what's going to help diminish the discrimination and the hate. And that's why I keep doing this, because first I thought I was just a media junkie, but then I really realized the immense power that it has and the immense change that we can get, whether it's a queer media outlet that really does an amazing job, or whether it's a mainstream outlet, but it's going to reach a whole lot of people who can no longer say, I don't know someone who's queer.
I've worked with Cathy for 30 years as media, and we're friends, but also in a professional capacity. Okay, well, maybe. But I can honestly say that the gay community, the LGBT community, I'm 66, sometimes I slip. The LGBT community is so lucky to have her on as part of us, because she has been one of the greatest connectors, one of the greatest people who have brought us to national media. I don't even know how to express it. This is like one of these rare treasures that come to light. It's true, that come to light. And she's tireless. She's relentless, but she's not pushy like me. She's very, very nice about it. And she gets so much coverage for our community nationwide, globally, that if you don't know who Cathy Renna is, you need to learn it. And I will just say one quick anecdote about her, because I almost brought this if I could have found it. The first cover we did, we were still a little tiny paper magazine, and I had a crazy art director. And if he's watching this, you are a crazy art director. And
Yes, Todd.
No, it wasn't Todd. It was Daryl. It was
Daryl, sorry.
Daryl. It was like nuts, but okay. But he was inventive, and he's like, okay, we had Annie shoot her, and Daryl said, okay, we're gonna have you hold a magnifying glass up to your face and sort of get that thing. And so we have this weird picture of Cathy with a magnifying glass covering her face and her eye, and that's what he put on the cover. And yeah, one eye. And it's like, I was so sorry. I said, well, that's the end of my friendship with her. But she was a good sport about it. And later, actually, for our April Fool's issue, held a handful of worms in a parody that we did. So I figured if I can get her to hold a handful of worms, we're still friends. But seriously, again, I know that this is someone I know personally. She's done so much for our community and is an amazing activist for us as well. So anyway, see, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. You had some beautiful flowers to give. Don't be sorry, right? So I appreciate everything that you said. It's funny how connections are. I know who all of you are, but you spoke of Tyra, Cathy. And Tyra, that was my first introduction to a trans woman. Tyra is actually a friend of the family. So when I was little, the youngest person up here probably. When I was little, that was my introduction, and her care or her lack of care was my first introduction to how trans individuals were being treated. So as we talk about organizing and the reasons for it, and I noticed you all talking about media, I use my platform for that. I'm on every platform known to everyone, using my platform for mental health and talking about LGBTQIA plus. I did the letters, and letting people know this is how you amplify and this is how you use your voice. And there's so many younger people from a younger generation that are finding out, oh, this is what our community is about. So you've told us how you organize, how it came to be. What advice do you have for future leaders in the movement right now? I know that's a hell of a question, but if anything, what could you tell them?
Keep doing it. I mean, we thought we won with marriage, didn't we? We thought, okay, yay, done. And now first they started to test the religious waters and say, is this going to work? And then they found the transgender waters and they went, oh, this is going to work. And then they just went on the full attack. And I can't tell you, every day I edit 3 or 4 stories for the website, transgender, this horrible things happen, this horrible things happen, this horrible things happen. It's the most depressing thing, but it's so important to get this news out, at least from our perspective. What I would say to leaders, what I'd say to young journalists out there, or anybody out there, find a publication that you can express an opinion in, that you can report fairly in, and get it right, and tell our stories, and get our stories out there. And places like The Blade, like Metro Weekly, The Advocate, these are important. They're more vital now than they have ever been, because mainstream media is all about clickbait. We are not about clickbait. Sure, we write headlines sometimes that, okay, we want you to read the article, but we're not about that. We're about digging deeper into our community. And we're not just about our publications are not about just finding the bad side of things, but celebrating the positive things. We have to remember that there are positive things out there that are happening, and to future people out there, don't lose heart. Stick around and go to Pride, go to World Pride. You're going to have the best time at World Pride you've ever had in your life. And I'm just going, one more little tangent and I'll be done, because you brought up Banneker Field. And I remember Banneker Field was the most joyous time I ever spent not the most joy. It was a joyous Black Pride, because also Youth Pride in Little DuPont Circle was joyous. Every Pride is joyous. Go to as many prides as you can, soak it up, be part of it, volunteer, get onto a Stonewall sports league, just be part of the community. And when we encounter hate, I'd like to say just hate back, but don't. Love them back. Love them back and show them the hypocrites they are. That's what my advice is to the future people.
I would say the
Thank you
same
for
thing. Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead, Doctor.
Okay. Thank you for that. I so agree. And I want to add to, when you're looking at publications, don't only look at the Blade and Metro Weekly, look at the Informer. There's a little rag in California called Rancho Mirage, that's part of a community, and they just did a story on caregiving for 2 Black lesbians that have been together forever. So yes, put our stories out, put them in LGBTQ plus SGL publications, but also look outside of that, right? Outside to that little tiny, the Brooklyn rag that they have in Brooklyn, used to have in Brooklyn, DC. I don't know if they have that anymore. And when I'm talking to young leaders, or because we all can be leaders, young, old, and medium, I'd like us to understand that anybody can be a leader, and everyone has something to say. Don't dismiss somebody because they're older or because they're not LGBTQ plus SGL. We all have something that we can give. Lean into us, right? Lean into us, lean into the leaders that we currently have, as well as the leaders that are coming in. I have this practice that I've begun, it's about a year now, that I ask my colleagues, and I tell my colleagues that call me if you need 6 minutes, because as leaders, especially during these times, sometimes you just only need 6 minutes to scream, cry, yell, celebrate. In 6 minutes, if you call me and I'm in a meeting, I can go on hold and I can step out for 6 minutes to give you that support, because often that's All you need is that support. And if I can't, I'll say, I'll call you back. And they do the same for me. We really, at this point, someone else said it on the panel, we all need each other, right? We cannot be an island. We can't not be a silo. And I'm not talking just individually. I'm talking as who we are, NGLTF, as Mary's House for Older Adults, as whoever and whatever we are, we've got to live in community.
Thank you. Robert, are you going to?
I'm sure. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with that. And, just finding your chosen family, and finding people that you really want to be around, people that support you. I know, after I moved here, I didn't really have any older gay people that I really knew or could trust. And then I met Steve Gunderson and Rob Morris, who were together. And Steve Gunderson was the representative in Congress that got outed on the House floor. And so just being able to hear their life stories and knowing that they were trying to encourage me, like you said, volunteering. And if there wasn't a seat at the table, I made a seat and I helped other people make a seat at the table, because, when we're together and we share those ideas and our life experiences, we're stronger. And so, and like at Women Walker Health, I wasn't going to get the job until I was inside the door. So find a way to get in the door, find a seat at the table, and continue to volunteer and support each other, because it's going to take all of us working together to overcome what we're facing right now.
Can I quickly piggyback on that? I think it was Shirley Chisholm that said, if they don't give you a seat at a table, bring a chair. It was Shirley Chisholm or Barbara, one of those Black women, I don't know.
And that reminds me of Barney Frank, who said similar quote. And part of my bio is that I moved to DC to work at the Gay and Lesbian Victory Fund. So the plug there, and same from what Randy was just saying, is, hold back on the anger. And I have one of their shirts, and it says, don't get mad, get elected. And, that's another opportunity. And leadership doesn't mean being at the very top of the scale. It could be at any level. Here in DC, we have A&C commissioners, we have committees. There's so many opportunities, and stay positive. Things will always change. It may not change at the same pace that we're used to being in DC, but there'll always be a change. And I think chip away at the things we can control and the battles we want that we're motivated to work on, and hold back on the others.
Well, think back to the AIDS era. I mean, in the AIDS era, it was impacting not just the gay community, but largely the gay community at the time. And who was the community that got it on the map and got things moving? It was the gay community. We are organizers. We are organizers as a people. And the forces we're fighting now, it's up to us. If Democrats aren't doing it right, it's up to us to organize. It's up to us to get together. It's up to us to do this. And that's exactly what World Pride, I think, is going to show everyone in this year. It would have been different under Harris, but under Trump, we're going to show them a different side of us as well as celebrating. And so I think that's important to remember. I just think that's important to remember, that our community, be proud for future leaders, for future people. Know that what you come from is a long tradition. Well, Stonewall, we come from a long tradition of changing society. We don't fit into society. And so we've changed society to make a seat in society for us. And we will continue to do that. And that's the advice I think that they should take. I just trail off.
Oh, good. I'll take it up. I'll pick it up. Pick the baton up. I co-sign all of those things. I mean, the one thing I would say is that a lot of the leaders I know are young people, like current leaders. They're awesome. I mean, there are teenagers out there who are, and there's a whole young generation of literally, I have a niece who's 9, and we were texting about something. My daughter sent a picture of her new hairdo, and my 9-year-old niece texted back, "Slay." I'm like, is she watching RuPaul's Drag Race? These kids, she'll tease Karen and I, my wife and I, about, oh, that's right, you can get married now, I forgot, and then she'll run away. There's a whole generation of young people who are already leading. What I would say to anybody who's getting engaged, age, irrespective of age, learn a little history. They're doing the same, can I curse? They're doing the same shit they've been doing for decades. It's the same arguments. So go back, marriage, don't ask, don't tell, pick something. When we were trying to get Don't Ask, Don't Tell overturned, or even just when it was signed into law by Clinton, the arguments were submarines, showers, bathrooms. Oh my God, I don't want to be next to a gay guy, in the locker room, whatever. And they're the same arguments: marriage, danger to children. What we need to do is learn from how we combated those, what we did right and what we did wrong, because we made mistakes along the way, particularly around some of the marriage stuff. When we made it possible for people to tell their real stories, kind of good and challenging, then it became a whole different kind of argument. And of course, some people thought we were done when we got married. That's another panel to talk about. But for those of us who are really in this, we knew that was it's the floor, not the ceiling, right? I think Matt used to say that, right? The floor, not the ceiling. And so we have a lot of work to do, but we know how to do it. And we're really good at it. And what we need to do is just be able to do it better together, and to find a way to create the space for and I would say new generation of leadership, but that doesn't mean they're young. Anybody can come in at any time. So you can be, a senior and become a leader in the community and do more. So that's what I would say. Learn a little history. Like somebody had a sign at the protest that said, "Those bricks aren't going to throw themselves." And and there was no brick, and that's a whole nother panel. But we need to do that. If we don't do it, nobody's going to do it for us. And the trans community is a very small percentage of our population. But guess what? It's like, so are we, so we're queer people and now we look at the numbers and we look at the younger people coming out, being more fluid, being more open. That change is happening because of the work of tons of folks before us. And it's time to pass the baton in a way that is informed by how we were able to make the progress that we have. It's progress, visibility, progress, backlash, and then repeat. It's like a
resist,
machine.
and resist.
Yes, exactly.
Resist.
Yep.
And not just LGBTQ plus SGL issues, right? Sometimes we have the tendency just I'm going to do these issues, but I'm not going to do housing issues, or I'm not going to do issues of food scarcity or any of those. We're all intertwined. LGBTQ plus SGL issues, our housing issues, our food scarcity issues, you know what I'm saying? So we've got to lean into that, and not and we just have to lean into that. And I'm going to end that with this. Someone told me that Harriet Tubman didn't care who the president was when she got her freedom. And then she went back and got her peeps freedom, and the Allies created the Underground Railroad. So we had a process. I'm just leaving that right there.
Yes, I love that. I love what all of you have had to say this evening. I think about, when we talk about our future, which is going to lead me into our last question, is there's a different type of, I call it just moxie, just energy with the younger generation. They're just so ready to stand up to anybody who is saying that they can't, or they shouldn't, or that their voice isn't worthy of being heard. So, and that gives me hope, which brings us to the last question. In 3 words or less, in 3 words. I'm going to scan like I'm not looking at a particular 3 words or less. Please tell us what gives you hope. And I kind of want to start with Doc. Is that okay, ma'am?
Absolutely. But if you call me ma'am again, we're going to have problems when I see you.
Listen, sis, yes. Honorary, yes. Regal queen.
All right, so I'm not going to do topic. What I am going to do is invite you all to our April 10th ribbon cutting for Mary's House for Older Adults. We did it. Come on out and be at the ribbon cutting.
All right.
Yes, come on. We love a good shameless plug. Shout out to Mother Rayceen, the queen of shameless
Is
plug. While we
Rayceen
here.
around?
That's my mother. No, she's not, but that's my mother. So I will tell her you said her name. All right. Anybody else have 3 words?
I'm terrified. I know. You know what? I'm not going to go topic either. I'm just going to say, if you're not reading Metro Weekly, no, seriously, we're digital now. We printed, it's been 5 years since we actually printed an issue. Last week was the anniversary. And yet we've printed now, or we've published 240 digital issues. And they're different, but they're still Metro Weekly, the same thing in some ways. Anyway, it's very easy. So here are my 3 words, or 1 word: www.metroweekly.com/subscribe and get the magazine free in your inbox. metroweekly.com, subscribe. There's my 3 words. And that
Slay.
gives me hope.
I mean, we got the questions in advance. You sure should have thought about this.
And that's why she's an organizer.
3 words. That's right. I would say family community work.
Oh, that's how the game works.
Yes. It doesn't have to be a sentence. It's just 3 words.
Oh, that's very hard for me.
Editor.
Yeah, that's tough. Chosen family, and I say that because my partner Nathan, his 2 nieces, when they see us, they don't see us as a gay couple. They just see us as people that they love and trust. And so I think I take that back to the family that I have that I don't really talk to anymore because they're so into Trump and, against the gay community. And so I look at that and I'm like, you're not getting to know the people that you love and people that have, as a kid, I looked up to them. But now it's hard for me to have a conversation because I know they don't support me and they don't support my partner and they don't support my community. So chosen family is really it for me.
Thank you.
I would say patience, allies, and by that I mean our straight allies. I've turned around big time, and courage from those youth.
Come on. See, you won. Yes. Yes.
Although I would say one other thing. The people in this room and the people watching this video, that gives me hope.
Yes.
Agreed.
You did I am telling he couldn't do it and he did it right. I think I will, on my 3 words, it will be community, empowerment, and knowledge. We need community to lean into each other, to survive, to give safety to each other. We need knowledge because we must always remember who we are, even when they're trying to tell us we aren't and trying to remind us that we have gone through oppression. My oppressor has no power over me. And just to remember that the work can't get done if we don't have community, we don't have that knowledge to be empowered. So I know we have some words from Capital Pride and Word Pride. That's you.
That's Ryan.
Thank you, Cathy. Thank you all for coming, and I want to definitely thank every single one of you for taking time this evening to share your stories and to inspire and bring hope to those in this room and around the world, because we need to find it where we can. And I hope that you all have been paying attention to the announcements that we have started to put out into the community to hopefully give some joy to folks, whether it be performers at the Free Street Festival and concert, whether it be the folks performing at the Global Dance Party, announcements of the nightlife parties coming. Be on the lookout. We're going to be announcing special guest speakers and panelists for the Human Rights Conference and much more. But if you weren't paying attention, Monday was March 17th. So that was exactly 2 months from the kickoff to World Pride, with Trans Pride Washington, D.C. on May 17th, followed quickly by D.C. Black Pride the following weekend, We'll be popping up a variety of events for DC Latinx Pride, Youth Pride, Silver Pride, Q-Tappy Pride, and we're going to have a lot of pride. And we hope you will help us encourage folks to continue to come. That is still the biggest question from folks around the globe and here in the US. And we know that they are still going to come because we have a huge fight in front of us. And as I've heard from all of you today, we're resilient and our community knows how to organize. So we'll see you at World Pride.
All right. Thank you. So I want to remind everybody to please follow Capital Pride DC and World Pride DC on social media. Please join Capital Pride here again for the upcoming panels on April 1st. I'll be back for that one. April 22nd, May 6th. Panelists, thank you all for joining us here this evening. Audience, give it up for our panelists. Yes. And I want to remind you to please visit Capital Pride website to RSVP for the next month and visit World Pride DC, the website, to learn about volunteering opportunities. We need volunteers. Everyone needs to come out, support, be a part of the revolution. All right. So